Well, it's the Gaza war, one that started 2 years back when Hamas butchered over 1,200 Israelis, kidnapped over 250. There have been efforts to end this war, multiple efforts. Trump himself is very deeply invested in finding a solution. Remember, he had suggested that he's going to solve all of this in one day. That hasn't happened. 2 years later, there are still about 25 to 30 hostages that are still alive with Hamas. And Israel's ground assault is very much underway. The human toll is piling up on both sides. And now US President Donald Trump has said that there is a ceasefire on the table, gave Hamas about 48 hours to accept it. But Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu's words and actions are telling a different story. It seems that there are two versions of the peace plan. Is that the reason why peace is still some time away? Well, the viral Hebrew clip of Netanyahu says that troops are not going to leave, suggesting that this war is far from over. What's the story all about? This report tells you in detail.
במקום שהחמאס יבודד אותנו, הפכנו את היוצרות ובודדנו את החמאס.
Benjamin Netanyahu says he supports Trump's ceasefire plan. However, in a Hebrew language statement going viral, he makes it clear Israeli troops will remain in Gaza indefinitely. The US proposal demands Hamas disarm and release all hostages with no guarantees in return. Gaza remains under siege and Israeli forces go on to hold territory. And no other stakeholder was even in the room when this deal was written. Analysts say Netanyahu has once again bent US policy in his favor. What's billed as a ceasefire looks more like a surrender demand. Trump warned Hamas to respond in 3 or 4 days or face what he called hell.
But we have just about everybody. We have one signature that we need, and that signature will pay in hell if they don't sign. I hope they sign for their own good and we create something really great.
This follows months of Israeli airstrikes, a deepening famine, and attacks on civilian areas. According to independent monitors, 83% of those killed in Gaza since 2023 have been civilians. But pressure from Washington has remained soft. Trump, once critical of endless wars, has greenlit Israeli strikes across the region. Syria, Yemen, Iran, and the list goes on. In June, he even backed joint US-Israeli bombings of Iranian nuclear sites. And Netanyahu, well, he just keeps raising the stakes. Bureau Report, NDTV World.
So viewers, you got up to speed with what really has happened. Now, ceasefire has been proposed, but there have been different versions of this deal. And deal breakers on both sides exist. Now, for Israel, any proposal that requires it to completely exit the territory is a deal breaker, as far as also requiring that Hamas completely disarm itself. These are the two versions and two absolutely important conditions that exist on the Israeli side. But there are deal breakers on the Hamas side as well. And this is where the problem exists. Now, the ground reality is different, and which is what we're going to tell you right here, that how peace looks elusive even after it's been proposed and has almost been agreed upon. Let's get that up for you. First and foremost, firepower is still fueling the Gaza war. Drones are still hovering in the sky. There was a lot of talk about how all of this is going to stop. That isn't the case. That's the first important thing. Second important part, tanks are there. Very much. The ground assault is still underway. There has been no halt whatsoever there. So what is this peace process that we're talking about? What is this peace ceasefire formula that is being agreed upon? Because tanks are very much there. Next up, weapons are flowing uninterrupted into Israel, which means that the US-Israel weapon machinery, that supply line, is very much there. It hasn't been halted. Another important aspect of this war. So if weapons are flowing in freely, then where is that ceasefire? Next up, urban warfare doctrine has been extended. Far right wants total conquests. Next, that's the important part of it. Now, the Israeli far right has been very important in terms of all of these negotiations. And even now, Benjamin Netanyahu has been trying to placate the far right in his government to ensure that there is some consensus. And that is the reason why deal hasn't gone through, because they've been saying that there's going to be no surrender whatsoever. Israel will fight this war and win it on its own terms. How do you ensure that is another aspect of the ceasefire. And lastly, is this a tactical pause before regrouping, or is this actually a ceasefire? Remember, it's not just on one side. This is not just about an Israeli fact. The tactical pause can also allow Hamas to regain, regroup, and re-weaponize itself as well. They've been decimated, but they still exist. The underground tunnel network hasn't completely been damaged. Will this allow a pause, a much-needed pause, for the Hamas side as well, for the terror organization to come back with renewed focus, is the other aspect. Well, viewers, if you talk about the aspect that needs greater detail, if you take off your blinkers, as of 1st of October, no official Hamas response has actually come as far as this peace formula is concerned. It was proposed with a lot of fanfare from the Trump administration. There were a lot of Muslim nations that endorsed it. It almost seemed like the best possible solution on the table. Donald Trump also squeezed in his ad-lib. He ad-libbed as well and digressed from the script when he said that there was no ocean that was part of the deal. He said the realtor in me is saying, why is it that they vacated an ocean? He's talking about the 2005 Gaza plan where Israel completely vacated. So remember, all the optics were in place. It was being hailed as a major breakthrough. It now risks collapse. Why? Well, because as I said, there are two versions of this Gaza plan that came forth. It is being alleged and it is being said that there was one version that was presented to one party, and there were 11th hour changes that were made, which were presented finally to Hamas. And that leads not just to mistrust, but the possibility and a potential of a complete collapse of talks that have probably not come even this far in the last 2 years.